Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the car. It's a nice and cool night here, and I just got out of the gym. And I wanted to talk a bit about job interviews because I got a question in office hours today from somebody who had an interview coming up, and they wanted to know if I could tell them some C++ tricks that would impress the interviewers. And I have some thoughts about that, but office hours is not really the best format to expand and think in depth. So that's why we're doing a separate video. So where do we start? I have a fair amount of experience interviewing people. I've interviewed many people for technical jobs at many companies, at small companies and large companies. And I've also interviewed for positions myself. So I know how it goes. And I think a lot of people, especially young people and people new to the tech industry, have some strange ideas about how to best prepare for interviews and how to be good at programming job interviews. And I think a lot of these strange ideas come from this industry that has sprung up around programming job interview preparation, because nowadays there are all these websites and books and courses and coaches and YouTube channels and whatnot, all about job interview preparation for programmers. So of course they want you to think that you need them, so these ideas spread. But I don't really believe that that is the best way to prepare. And what I always tell people is to focus instead of focusing on solving a lot of these toy problems or gimmick problems and memorizing solutions to various brain teasers and stuff like that, to just focus on the fundamentals of computer science and make yourself comfortable with programming problem solving. And as an example, when I interviewed for the job I had at Apple, I didn't have any kind of structured or serious preparation. I just had basically had some confidence that my programming fundamentals were strong enough that I could probably think my way out of whatever problem they gave me. And that ended up working out. Although that's not to say I wasn't nervous or that it wasn't stressful, but I'd still, at that point in my career, I had still attained a level of comfort with programming fundamentals that I knew that I could at least solve problems, even if not elegantly. And that has always worked out for me, because at least in my view, as an interviewer, what I'm looking for in a candidate is not, has this candidate memorized all of the lead code problems or all of the optimal, most efficient algorithms for whatever situation. I don't care about that. What I'm looking for is, can this person problem solve with programming? Like, can this person come up with an implementation of something? Can this person think up an algorithm to do something and then write it out in code? And the another thing I often tell people is, if you don't know what data structure or algorithm to use, just do something crappy with like put everything in a vector and like loop through the vector every time. You don't have to make a fancy tree if you can't think of a way to do it. You don't have to do a recursive algorithm if you can. If you can't figure out how to do that, you can do iterate instead, or just do whatever your brain can do to solve the problem at hand. And I think something I've seen a lot while interviewing is that People do well when it's a problem that they've seen before, or it's composed of things that they've seen before. But if you give them something that they haven't seen before, then a lot of people sort of break down and they don't make any progress. And that's the part where fundamentals, like strong focus on fundamentals, will save you, because um, if you have strong fundamentals, it doesn't matter if you don't have a memorized solution or if you've never seen a problem before, because you can approach it from first principles, and just think like, okay, well, what are the objects here, or what is this data that I'm supposed to process? How many passes do I need to process the data? What are the inputs and outputs? How can I massage this input to become the output that I want? And there's always many ways to solve problems with code, right? Just because there's an elegant, beautiful way doesn't mean that there isn't a duct tape and suspenders way that also works. And what I'm trying to say is, if you focus on fundamentals and build strong fundamentals by getting experience with just programming a lot and building things, especially things together with other people, but also just building random things that seem interesting so that you get exposure to a lot of different concepts, that is infinitely more useful in interviews. Because then you will never feel like the carpet was pulled from under you. And furthermore, the part where this really shines is if you actually get the job. Because once you get hired, nobody's trying to hire you because you memorized all of the lead code and brain teasers and whatnot, or because you're really good at those like competitive programming problems. People hire you because they think that you can solve problems for them, problems that they have, right? So most likely, if you have strong fundamentals, you will be much better equipped to solve whatever real problems come up at the actual job. I have certainly seen people get hired who did not have strong fundamentals, and they indeed did not do well, or there was a very long period where they were not productive until they were able to become productive by getting actual practice. Whereas every single time that I hired somebody with like strong fundamentals and real life experience, and not necessarily the optimal interview answers, but still persistent answers, like they always do well. And if you get stuck on a question in an interview, the number one thing to do is to not give up and just push through it anyway and make a piece of crap solution. Just make anything, something, just anything that works. Because if you are a programmer, and if you're qualified for the job, then you can do that. And if you can't even build a crappy solution for something, then you're probably not qualified for whatever the job is, and that's fine. Like, then you've learned that, and the company has learned that, and you can go your separate ways, and maybe you meet up later after you've gotten more practice. But persist through any difficult problem and don't give up. That's super important. I've definitely seen people persist and build like a really crappy solution to some interview problem, take a very long time to do it, but they made something that did work. And at the end of the day, when we did the feedback rounds, like, what did you think of this candidate? I always approved of the people who pushed themselves to actually make something that worked. And I don't know about every company in the world, obviously, but I always appreciated that companies allow employees to interview their like potential new coworkers, because it feels like a sign of respect from the company that, like, well, you're going to work with these people, so we want you to interview them. Um, so I always take that seriously because, if I'm hiring somebody I'm going to work with, I want them to be capable. And of course, there are situations where people have unreasonable expectations, and there's definitely an element of people who feel that because they had to grind nonsense before they got a job, they want to see others go through that as well. So they look for that when they interview. Um, but I'd like to believe that those are a bit rare, and most people who interview you are just looking for somebody that they can work with who can solve problems. Um, yeah, so these are my thoughts slash advice on job interviews. How to get a job, and then how to actually not suck at the job once you have it. Focus on your fundamentals. And the way you focus on your fundamentals is by doing a lot of programming. And don't just do toy problems, but do real problems, like join open source projects or build your own projects or whatever, but just do programming, and do stuff that goes beyond a single file with less than 100 lines. Yeah, that's those are my thoughts on that. So thank you very much for hearing me out. I feel much better now that I could talk about it at length. And I guess I will see you all next time. Bye.